It's time to dive beneath the surface and into the minds and hearts of your favorite celebrities and pop culture icons. Welcome to Up and Adam.
Hey guys, what's up? You're watching Up and Adam. My name's Adam Newell. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm the guy bringing you guys all the weekly interviews and recaps from your favorite celebrities and pop culture influencers. But for those of you who do know me, you know that that's not why we're always here, right? Guys, if you haven't already, go ahead, smash that like button, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell because, well, you don't want to miss anything we have coming up. And with that, let's jump right in. Okay, guys, so we're back to talk about the Real Housewives. Apparently, there is a book coming out to reveal all of the money secrets behind the Real Housewives franchise. That's right, guys. Brian Moylan has put out a book that's called The Real Housewives, the real story behind the Real Housewives, and it is exposing everything. He not only talks about some of the highest paid housewives, but he also talks about what they get as far as flight credits, how much they're paid for their glam, if anything, who's the highest paid housewife, and who was the cheapest. Brian's not holding back in his new book, and honestly, I can't wait to buy a copy because I'm so curious as to what's actually in it. This is just a little bit of a tidbit as to what goes on behind the scenes of the show. And I find it fascinating. Guys, we've been following Housewives for so many years. Orange County was our flagship franchise, and it had 15 seasons. Now it's on its 16th season. So just imagine how long we've really been watching these shows. Now, everyone always assumes the Housewives make so much money, but from Brian's book, it seems like sure, that's true, but there's a lot of money that they spend themselves. Now, I would imagine that they are 1099. So meaning, if you don't know what that means, that they're independent contractors. And when they get paid this money, they have to pay their own taxes on it. And when they do glam, glitz, flights, whatever the case is, I'm sure those are all tax write-offs, as long as they're careful about it. But I don't want to just put words into Brian's mouth. This is what he said about the Real Housewives. Apparently, the Real Housewives do not get any money when it comes to glam, especially someone like Erica Girardi, who was boasting about spending $40,000 a month on glam. If that's what you want, if you want $1,000 a month on glam, that's coming out of your own pocket. So when we see Real Housewives stars like Erica Girardi or Dorit Kemsley, or some of the other ones that look completely fabulous all the time, at least on the show, they're coming out of pocket for these things. Now, even down to the reunion dresses, we always see these amazing dresses on the reunion floors, but that's not something that is really paid for either. Sure, they each get a $1,200 credit for their dresses, but at the same time in the Housewives world, what is $1,200 when you're talking about a reunion dress? Now, it makes you wonder, though, how many of these housewives are actually coming out of pocket, or how many housewives are just kind of sponsoring these different designers and brands, because Andy Cohen does sometimes go around the room and he says, well, what are you wearing? For example, Luann de Lesseps is like, well, this is a Giovanni classic, of course. And I'm sure just by her mentioning his name, he's like, I'll loan you the dress. I'll alter it to fit you, whatever the case is. I'll give you the dress. Just make sure you mention it on the show. But at the end of the day, again, $1,200 when you're talking about a reunion dress, especially for some of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills who spend that on 2 outfits, let alone a glam dress, it's really not that much money. Now, he also exposed who the highest paid housewife actually is, and apparently it's Kandi Burruss. Kandi Burruss is the highest paid housewife, raking in a whopping $2 million per season, but it hasn't always been Kandi, because before Nene Leakes left the show, got fired, whatever the case was, I'm not sure what happened with her contract, but she said they pushed her out. She was receiving $2.85 million for a season. That's what she received reportedly for season 12. And that's a lot of freaking money. Now, he did mention that the Real Housewives of Atlanta have pretty much carried the highest rated season for a long time. So that's why those housewives get paid a lot more. But right under Kandi, there's a few other housewives who are making not as much, but a lot of money as well. Teresa Giudice from the Real Housewives of New Jersey is raking in $1 million a season. And a fun fact that none of us knew, or at least I didn't know, so if you knew, I apologize, but a fun fact that I didn't know was that the Real Housewives of New Jersey husbands are the only ones in any of the franchises that get paid. So normally they don't pay the house husbands, they pay the housewives, and then those wives obviously split their money with their family and the husbands. And I'm sure it goes into a joint account or whatever if you will. I'm not quite sure. But as for the Real Housewives of New Jersey, Joe Gorga, Joe Josephs, Frank Catania, Bill Aiden, all of these house husbands are getting paid for their time on the show. Now, he did mention that Teresa Giudice should be careful before she gets married again, especially if she's going to marry Louis Ruelas. And I was wondering, is that because reports are coming out that he had a little bit of a shady past? But that's not what he was talking about. Apparently, there's something in her contract that she should be weary about, because if she gets married, I guess it affects her $1 million. But I don't understand. Maybe that means she'll have to split or come off of some of her 1 million in order to pay a portion of it to Louis. I don't really know what this means or what he's alluding to. That's why we have to actually buy his book, The Real Housewives, the real story behind the housewives, because these are some secrets that we didn't know and we definitely need to learn more about. Now, if you guys don't know Brian Moylan, he was a producer, or maybe still is, of The Real Housewives, and he did point out there was one of the cheapest housewives that he encountered. He actually said they're all so cheap, which is kind of a dig. I mean, it's not kind of, it is a dig, considering they boast their lavish lifestyles on the show and make us feel like they're living this sort of wealthy life that sometimes seems unattainable. And then, of course, we see people like Erica Jane, Jen Shaw, Teresa Giudice. We see them getting in trouble, or at least going to court, because these lavish lifestyles weren't necessarily funded in the best way, or at least an ethical way, if you will. Now, when he said there was one of the cheapest housewives he encountered, he was talking about one of the Real Housewives of New York. I don't know if you guys remember her, but she had the iconic pull off her leg and slam it on the table, Aviva Drescher. He claimed that she took a few items from Bobby Burke's store, gave the credit card to the store and said, listen, I will return these items. I'm just using them for filming, and, you know, just keep my credit card. And if anything happens, then you guys can charge my credit card. Well, he also claimed that she never brought back the items. And when they went to charge her credit card, it was allegedly or reportedly, or whatever he's saying, declined. Now, I think it's kind of interesting that he's just claiming she was the cheapest housewife. Out of all of the housewives in housewives history, you go ahead and point out Aviva Drescher? Okay, Brian, we see you. Now, not to mention, it's not just all about the cheapest housewife or who's making the most money. He's exposing a lot of the secrets behind filming and production of the housewives. It seems like he's holding a lot in, or has been, and now he's ready and willing to tell all. So if that's the case, we're here for it, and we can't wait to read your book while you read them up and down, right? Of course, going back to it, Brian Moylan is exposing some of the biggest money secrets. So guys, this is a book that we want to read. We want to see what's going on. And I'm curious as to how many franchises he's actually exposing. And I also want to know, especially after this past season, are the Real Housewives of Atlanta still going to continue to have the highest paid housewives? Or will that torch be passed off to another franchise, maybe even Beverly Hills? Maybe eventually Salt Lake City. I mean, they're only on their second season, so they would have a long way to go. But I am curious as to how much some of the other housewives are getting paid. If you remember, when Leah McSweeney joined, she wasn't making anything but pennies. But then her second season, she actually was not going to join because the contract they offered her, she felt like it wasn't worth it. So she was in negotiations back and forth for quite some time. And then finally, production was like, okay, we need another housewife. We can't add all of these newbies. We need somebody. So we'll bring back Leah McSweeney. Even though I listen to you guys, I read the comments, and a lot of you guys are like, get Leah off our screens. I think Leah was interesting definitely in her first season, and she shook things up. But this season, with her and her sobriety journey and also converting to Judaism, some people feel like she's doing a lot of this for storylines, and also that she's not as interesting now that she's not drinking, which is definitely a dig. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Guys, I want to know what you think about all of this. What do you think about the secrets being exposed as far as who is the highest paid housewife, how much they get for the reunion dresses, how they fly? And by the way, I didn't touch on that. When they fly, they get offered coach seats. If they want to sit in first class, they have to pay to upgrade it on their own. They don't actually get flown first class or private anywhere they go. That's at least what Brian is saying in his book. I'm curious as to how much of this is true. Mind you, he was one of the producers, still is. I don't know if he still would be actually if he's writing a tell-all, but that's one for the book, I guess. If you haven't already, go ahead, comment below, answer all the questions to which I asked. And before you go, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell because, well, you don't want to miss anything we have coming up. And with that, we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thanks for watching Up and Adam.